All right, what's up, guys? We will continue where we left off with just explaining to you guys what is low-hanging fruit, how do I identify it, and how can I avoid those pesky rabbit holes that OSCP is known for, that the more difficult CTFs are known for, that some difficult real-world engagements are probably going to be known for. So we left off with SSH last time. This time we're going to start with Telnet. Now, what is Telnet? Telnet is like a remote administration kind of protocol. Pretty much the same use case as SSH. The only difference is it's a lot older of a protocol and it's not encrypted. So pretty much nowadays no one should be running Telnet. Like that's a pretty much, even if pretty much if you find Telnet running in the corporate world, that is considered a vulnerability because everything is sent across the wire in plain text. That means all your commands that you run as a sysadmin are viewable if you're on the network. So no one should be running this anyways. But as far as from an attacker's perspective in the lens of like CTFs, OSCP, and stuff like that, it's not going to be generally too huge of a thing from my experience thus far. We could do some search on this. It doesn't look like we have very granular information. I had never exploited Telnet to get a shell on anything. But let's see here. I mean, most of the vulnerabilities surrounding this have to do with encryption and the fact that it's not encrypted, right? Now, I don't know what version of Telnet. Now, this would be something maybe you want to look at further enumeration on Telnet, running some like Nmap scripts or Metasploit auxiliary modules or whatever, because it looks like there is arbitrary code execution on a particular version of Telnet D, which this may or may not be running. We'd have to do some more enumeration. But yeah, so there is a potential to get an RCE off this. So you always have to do your due diligence as far as really enumerating things properly. But generally, from my experience with OSCP and CTFs, is you're not normally going to see this port open. Now, you could try to just connect to it and see, like maybe find credentials to connect to it or whatever, and then maybe there's some information on there that you can access that's going to lead to further compromising the system. But I wouldn't really worry too much about this one. Certainly in a corporate world, you don't want it running. Now, SMTP, here's the next one. This one is for mail, like email. So with this one, what I'm typically thinking is, so for all of these, I should have said this from the start of this series, but for all of the ports, there's two main questions that I'm asking myself. One, is the port known for RCEs? Because if it is, that's the first thing you want to look for. It'll save you the most time, because if it's notorious for RCEs, you do your enumeration, you find out it's vulnerable to the RCE, you quickly get a shell. So that's number one question I ask. The second most important question that I ask is, if it's not known for RCEs, is it known as a protocol that could help me further enumerate? So with those two questions in mind, and further enumerate, I mean, like, can I get information from it that is sensitive, like maybe credentials, maybe any kind of information that's going to lead towards me compromising the system? So as far as those two questions go, I would say SMTP relates to the latter. It's normally what you would use to get information about the system. So there's certain, commands, SMTP commands here. You can use like the verify command. And let me just pull up my notes here, because it has been a little while since I've used SMTP as a way to hack stuff, basically. I have gotten an email shell before. So if you, but it was more like an LFI, right? A local file inclusion. So here, I'll just show you what I have on my notes here. In this case, here, I'll full screen it. Maybe zoom in so you can see it better. I did find an SMTP email shell before through an LFI. So you can use this to confirm usernames, this command here, or you can also use hello, as we'll see, I think. All right, well, this one doesn't allow for it, and my cursor froze up there, not sure. But there's like this. This is also a command, and then you do, username. So if I wanted to look for an account called Bob, I can do this command when I'm in the SMTP shell, obviously, and it will confirm to me if it accepts this SMTP command. If it's configured to accept it, it will tell you if Bob is a user on the system or not. So that can be useful for user enumeration. So like I said, a lot of enumeration kind of stuff from this protocol. Now, in this case, I was able to use verify to, oh, sorry. I said that wrong. You give it your username and then use the verify command like this. And then you can give it a username and then IP address or localhost in this case, right? So I could do that if it accepts the verify SMTP command. Oh, it looks like our full scan completed. But let's see, in this case, it does, right? So in another video, maybe I can go into actually interfacing with these different protocols, but I want to kind of like rattle through this for now to really, just give you guys the nitty gritty, the basic rundown. So, but yeah, here's how, you can take a look at these notes if you want. This is how I got a shell on it before. So you can get a shell sometimes. A lot of times though, most of the time when I see this protocol, I'm thinking enumeration, getting further information, maybe being able to confirm what user accounts exist on the system, stuff like that. So that's all to really say with that one. The next one is DNS on 53. Now, normally DNS will run on UDP as opposed to TCP, but usually when you see it running on TCP, usually, not always, it allows what are called zone transfers. Zone transfer allows you to view all the records, all the DNS records on the server. So you can find like some other DNS. You can find some other DNS records there. So maybe there's some other sites that you can go to if you had your Etsy host file. So this is one that is more of like it's typically a enumeration type one protocol. Like you get more information from it. You find some web servers that you didn't know existed. So definitely more of an information based type of protocol. But I will say, anytime you have software with the versions here, always look up the vulnerabilities, because who knows, maybe this is vulnerable to some kind of point and click RCE. Who knows? But yeah, moving right along is HTTP. Everyone is familiar, I'm sure, with that. That means there's a web server running. This is an unencrypted protocol, so that means that it's all sent in plain text. Mostly we see HTTPS in the real world nowadays, but this is definitely still around. Here you go. You got information on the HTTPD version, which we can, knowing it's Ubuntu, we can actually tell. If we go to the Ubuntu site, we can actually determine the exact version of Ubuntu that's being run on the server. So a lot of information to glean just from this here. And usually with HTTP, if it's running, that means I'm just going to go to it in my browser and play around and see if there's any, how is it coded? Are there any vulnerabilities? That's a whole other thing, web app vulnerability, web app pen testing. That's like a huge area that we'll cover another time, of course. But 111, RPC bind. This is where I'm thinking about information-based stuff. So a lot of times with this, you have Null sessions are normally something that you can potentially do. And with that, there's commands that you can use to connect to a null session. You can use like, let's see if I can find it really quick. There's certain commands. I can get really granular into this in another video, perhaps. Oh yeah, SMB client. That's the name of it. So you do like, you could, for example, you could do SMB client, and then you give it -L, give it the host name 168.1.102, and then in order for the null session, you give it the %. But this one might not allow null sessions, but typically that's how I'd go about it if it did. Oh, actually I think what I need to do here is these two slashes, but yeah, not necessarily that this one it has a null session. This is just something I would always go about and try, low-hanging fruit, right? So moving on from here, we'll wrap this video up with this one here, 139. That's pretty much the same deal. I would look for null sessions on that. That goes hand in hand with the other one. So, I think I might need to give it a port, right? I haven't run this in a while. I would have to really look at this stuff typically. Also, if you know what share it is, you would put that share here, right? Like share name would go here if there's a certain share you were looking for. But that's pretty much what I would do for that one. Is there let's see, right before I wrap this up, because this is the last one that I'm going to cover for this video, let's just take a look, get an idea. Oh yeah, here's the ports, right? So what if I look for, say, port 139 or 111? So yeah, it doesn't look like it here. This is the right IP address, right? I think it was. I mean, it may not be. Yeah, it may not be vulnerable to null session, but I would always look for a null session, because if you can connect to it, then there's a lot of information you can step through and gather from that as well. So yeah, I hope this was of help to you guys, and this is we'll just keep rattling through this in the subsequent videos, and hopefully help you guys avoid those rabbit holes, because they're really annoying. I know that from experience. But yeah, this has been Ryan with Elevate Security. I'll see you in the next one.